Hello, my name is Liz King. I am completing an oral book review assignment for my Ecology and Conservation Biology class through Madison Area Technical College, Truax campus. The instructor for this class is Robert Lovely, PhD. The name of the book is A Sand County Almanac. It is by Aldo Leopold. He died in 1948 without finishing this book. However, his son, Luna Leopold, finished the book, as well as all 8 essays. Together, they make up the completed work today. The book is published by Oxford University Press in 1949 and again in 1953. The Sand County Almanac is a book about conservation, or you could say the lack thereof. Aldo Leopold goes into great detail about how we as humans seem to want to do the right thing when it comes to conservation, but usually fall short when it affects our own comforts or bottom line. I believe Leopold wrote this book for anyone who would venture to read it. The language is not complex, nor are the ideas. However, like many nonfiction books, the reader must have an open mind and be ready to receive some inconvenient truths. Also, Aldo Leopold said, "Is a higher standard of living worth the cost of things natural, wild, and free?" There are 4 parts to the Sand County Almanac. Part 1, the Sand County Almanac, what the family does on their weekend refuge to the shack. Part 2, the quality of landscape, sketches out of step, company out of step. Part 3, a taste for country, land is a community in which we belong. And Part 4, the upshot and land ethic. The Sand County Almanac in Part 1, titled The Sand County Almanac, takes place in Wisconsin at the shack. His family's weekend refuge from the city. He speaks of nothing else except his life as a professor in Madison and leisure time at the farm or the shack. However, I never get the sense that leisure is actually relaxation for Leopold. He seems to always be thinking. Every month of the year offers new insight into conservation or the lack thereof. In January through spring, Leopold touches on how the seasons change throughout the year and how natural things know just what to do in each season with the changes that happen. They even seem to know better than we do, though people seem to like to consider themselves to be superior. Leopold talks extensively about the history of conservation, how it has ebbed and flowed throughout documented time. However, no one has seemed to do a genuinely great job of being consistently of job of consistent conservation. In fact, some efforts made have in fact damaged wild things more than helped. Although we as humans always seem to see the bigger picture in ourselves as betterment to lifestyle or financial security. The size of Leopold's farm is only bound where he can walk, not necessarily by a property line. Leopold says, "We grieve only for what we know." Therefore, by stepping off his property line and knowing more of nature, he was able to grieve more deeply for natural things. Many he may not have seen otherwise. Leopold talked further in the summer months of the beauty of the world through all his senses. In the fall, how he knew where the best places were to look for game, while other hunters would look in the usual places. Leopold was a keen observer of nature, and it guided him to success. Leopold points out, for every season there is a purpose, and every purpose a season. The late fall for cutting wood, for winter. It is amazing to me how much Leopold observed and therefore learned about nature. He said, "Who is more acquainted, people or animals, with their world?" Part 2 goes on to the quality of landscape, sketches, out of step, company out of step, talks more about how the seasons changed and how man changed the land to fit his needs rather than finding value in what nature provided. In Leopold's view, no one seemed to realize that when one thing changed in nature, it had a ripple effect and subsequently changed everything else. Leopold goes on to speak about many different places around the United States and how he saw this happening time and again. I was struck again by Leopold's observant nature. So many of the things I take for granted or simply didn't even think about before reading this book were under a proverbial microscope for Leopold. I never knew how much hunting affected the natural prey predator population, or how taking away the predator of one group would adversely affect the group so much. I also did not know how planting a crop that is not natural to the environment could have such an adverse effect on the environment. Before reading this book, I always thought that's just what we do to get the job done. Part 3, A Taste for Country, Land is a Community to which we belong. One of the quotes that struck me from part 3 was, "Poor land may be rich country." I thought this hit the nail right on the head. Growing up in America, I had been taught to think about what something such as land can do for me. But just because the land is not producing and bettering my lifestyle does not mean it is bad land. From this book, I have learned to look deeper at what the land is providing for wildlife. Now, while in my rural community where I live, I see roads, parking lots, and buildings as hazards rather than helpful constructs for humans. I recognize how they divide habitats. I see how we expect the government to fix whatever is wrong with the land when we, the people, must be responsible. Leopold said, "We still do not see the richness in biodiversity and how to keep extinction from happening." I think this is true. I think it will take all of us working together to keep the species that we have now and to educate our young on the importance of biodiversity. Part 4, the upshot, the land ethic, written after Leopold's death by his son, Luna Leopold. The land ethic talks about how all individuals are dependent on a community, and the land ethic changes man from conqueror of land into a member of the community. In 1937, farmers were encouraged to write their own soil conservation laws. Therefore, none were written. Luna said, "By making conservation easy, we have made it trivial." Although this book was written in 4 parts, I believe the book flowed very well. It emphasized conservation, the importance of biodiversity, all throughout 4 parts. Even now, it seems we are 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, each interest group pulling in 100 different directions. I would definitely recommend this book to others. It was a thought-provoking and enlightening read.